I am breaking down everything from the new hero Illari, the new PvE, the new game mode, patch notes, and so many more things. Now, was Season 6 a great success or was it a failure? You're gonna find out, and honestly, heads up, I think it's pretty great. So let's find out more. Illari was such a great release for Overwatch 2, because most hero releases are either extremely overpowered, kind of like Junker Queen was, or extremely underpowered, kind of like Lifeweaver. But Illari, however, she's kind of just middle of the road. She's strong enough to get plenty of value because her damage is strong, but it's not overpowering due to the slow rate of fire. And her healing pylon gets plenty of value with the amount of healing it does, but it can also be easily destroyed, and then her mobility is just kind of mid. It's not really Doomfist levels of mobility, but it's not Ana either. Now, Illari can get plenty of value, but she's not overpowered and she's not underpowered either. Illari is middle of the ground at best. And honestly, this is why the reception to Illari is so good. Personally, I think she's a well-balanced hero, but not the most fun or really engaging. To me, I don't find her primary fire very engaging. I really don't like the slow rate of fire. Although it's wonderful for balance reasons, it can feel like there's a lot of downtime, even when there's really not. Also, the idea of throwing a turret down to heal for you, it just doesn't feel very fun. I want to be the one aiming my healing, not a turret. And you might be thinking, oh, the secondary fire requires tracking, and yeah, you'd be right, and this part actually feels rewarding. But with Illari, the most rewarding part is landing headshots and securing kills. And her playstyle often boils down to throw turret down, then shoot enemy head. Now, some people may enjoy this, but I really don't. Although I don't find her very engaging, I think that she's a really great addition to the roster and was a very balanced release. I'd give it about an 8 out of 10 for me. Now moving on to the PvE. The PvE was great in terms of story, but honestly, it really lacked in terms of content. The PvE story was great. The story was engaging, voice acting was done very well, and the animations were beautiful. And personally, I found myself glued to the screen each time I saw a cutscene. I loved seeing all the heroes that I know and love on the screen talking with each other. It felt amazing in my little nostalgic heart. However, the content was really lackluster. The content only lasted an hour or so. The actual gameplay was fun, but it didn't do anything that older PvE events didn't already do. Some objectives and some robots to shoot. The only new thing that really stuck out to me were the differences in the abilities of the heroes. I found this part to be really engaging. I loved right-clicking with Winston to get that little electric spread between the enemies, and speed boosting my teammates' rate of fire. However, everything else felt really lackluster. Enemy types were cool, but the objectives were kind of meh. It was just kind of defend this or kill that. At least add some nuance. I'm not saying it has to be a Destiny 2 raid, but a couple of interesting puzzles might have been a good idea. Now, with all this said, I really do enjoy playing the PvE. I feel like I'm role-playing the Overwatch cast. Jumping as Winston and feeling the weight and impact that you make, it just makes you feel so powerful, just like they are in the story. And blocking massive missiles with Reinhardt's shield makes you feel exactly like Reinhardt in the Bastion cinematic. Now, although it lacked content, I really do enjoy playing the Overwatch 2 PvE. I already buy the Battle Pass every season, so spending an extra $5 is worth it to me. However, I don't really blame you if you don't find it enjoyable. After all the things that they promised us, this was an extreme letdown. So you can make your own decision. For me, I'd say it's about a 7 out of 10. Now moving on to the Flashpoint game mode. The new Flashpoint game mode is very fun, but I really don't think that it should be in the competitive queue. Flashpoint is a very fun mode. I love racing to the next objective, and I love that it's first to 3, so it always feels like there can be a comeback. I also think that the capture points are designed pretty good. Each point has multiple ways to enter in from, which can make it difficult to defend, but I'll take this any day over trying to get through a hyper tight choke. This makes it feel like there's nuance to capturing objectives and different approaches that you can take. However, with all of this said, I don't think that it should be in the competitive mode, at least not for now. The large map designs can make it so staggering is very impactful. If you stagger, you not only have to wait for your respawn time, but you also must run across the map to get to the next point. And in a game where staggering happens all the time, it can feel impossible to win. One teammate staggering can cost you so much time. By the time you group back up, the other team already capped the point. And speaking of the large map design, it can often feel like a walking simulator, which doesn't always feel the most engaging. Also, having the objective randomly spawn can be really tough in a competitive queue. On one hand, randomness is good because it will stop teams from being able to set up on a point early if they already know that they lost the previous point. But on the flip side, in a competitive environment, the last thing you want is randomness. Ideally, you want the objective to be consistent so that the competition comes down to player skill and expression, not who gets better RNG. Also, the map design heavily favors those heroes that have a lot of mobility, and this can honestly take away from player expression. In my opinion, the best competitive modes are those that let you play the heroes you love and express your skill by playing those heroes. If the map heavily favors certain heroes, it can feel like there's a lack of player expression. Although I think this game mode is very fun, I think it should stay out of the competitive queue, at least for now, while they still work out the kinks. For me, it's a 7 out of 10. Now moving on to the hero progression. The hero progression is a great addition to the game, and I feel like it should have been there since day one. The hero progression system seems to be fleshed out fairly well. It's broken down into different heroes, roles, and game modes, which is pretty awesome. Not only can you express yourself on an individual hero, but also a role as a whole. Plus, I love that you can unlock specific cosmetics for your hero by just playing them. The leveling system feels good, and the badges also look pretty good. Plus, after each game, you get a screen with all sorts of bars showing you your progress. This is small, but it can really help the player enjoy the game, because even after a tough loss, you still get some sort of feedback showing you your progress. Now, the only problem I have with the system is the fact that it wasn't there on day one. These small additions are what make the game feel fresh, new, and polished. These are the things that I would have expected on day one. I love Overwatch, and I had a blast on day one, but these should have been there on day one. Other than that, I have no gripes with it. I think it's a great addition to the game for both casual and competitive players. Casuals have something to work towards other than just the Battle Pass, and the competitive players have something to show off their skills and playtime with their favorite heroes. I think this is a great addition. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. Now moving on to the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass had a really good theme, but it felt kind of underwhelming. The Battle Pass theme was great this time around. I personally love the Omnic design. It fits really well with the PvE event, and they just look awesome. However, many of the other skins are kind of meh. Personally, I buy the Battle Pass for the skins. I really don't care much for the voice lines, the souvenirs, the emotes, or much else. The things I want the most is the skins. Now, with that said, it was very middle of the ground for me. The Omnic skins were great, but everything else kind of felt lackluster. However, I don't think that $15 for the Battle Pass and a PvE is like expensive, so I'm perfectly fine with the stuff I got for the money I spent. For me, it's kind of just a 6 out of 10. Now moving on to the patch notes. First, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what they are. If you don't want to watch this, or if you already know what the patch notes are, there's going to be chapters in the video, so you can skip ahead, and then you can skip ahead into where I just talk about my opinions on the patch notes. So let's just jump into that. The first change is for D.Va. Her boosters, the cooldown has been reduced from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds. Also, when you're ejecting from your mech, you're now immune to damage for 0.4 seconds. Then for Doomfist, the Seismic Slam cooldown has been reduced from 7 seconds to 6 seconds, and the power block now can reduce damage from sticky projectiles. So think Echo, sticky bombs, and Tracer pulse bomb. Now Orisa, her damage fall off for her primary fire has been increased from 15 meters to 20 meters. And then Fortify now gives you a bonus health. Instead of 75, it's now 125 bonus health. Now for Ramatra, he can now block sticky projectiles. Again, we're thinking Echo, sticky bombs, and Tracer pulse bomb. And then the ultimate cost has been increased by 12%, and you can also, again, in your ult, block sticky projectiles. Now moving on to Winston, the secondary fire charge time was actually reduced from 1.2 seconds to 1 second, so you can charge up that faster, but the recovery time was increased from 0.5 to 0.75. Now for Bastion, there's quite a bit of changes. The maximum explosion damage for the grenade was reduced from 70% to 50%. The detonation time was reduced from 0.5 to 0.35 seconds. The recoil adjusted to recover more quickly. The projectile size increased from 0.2 to 0.25, so it's a little bit bigger, and the impact damage increased from 15 to 30. The reload time was reduced from 1.5 to 1.2 seconds. Also, now when you're transforming into the assault mode, now is going to repair 50 armor health. And then for the ult, you actually can move faster. The speed was increased from 20 to 25 meters per second. Now for Cassidy, his gun, his damage fall off range is being moved back from 25 to 35 meters. And the mag grenade now can only travel for 1.5 seconds maximum, and the amount that it slows was reduced from 30 to 25%. Now for Hanzo, when you draw your bow and then you try to wall climb, it no longer will preserve what you had already drawn. Now for Soldier, the Helix rocket explosion damage was reduced from 90 to 80, and his ultimate cost was increased by 10%. Now moving on to Sombra, the ultimate cost increased by 15%, and the ultimate no longer destroys Lifeweaver's Tree of Life. Now moving on to Torb, his primary fire recovery time was reduced from 0.55 to 0.48 seconds, and the swing recovery time on his hammer was also reduced, and it was from 0.75 to 0.6. Now moving on to Ana, the damage and the healing per projectile was reduced from 75 to 70, and the unscoped projectile size was increased from 0 to 0.1, which means it'll be a little bit easier to hit your targets when you're unscoped. Now moving on to Brig, her barrier shield health was reduced from 300 to 250, and the ultimate cost was increased a little bit by 6%. Now for Kiriko on your Suzu, the knockback is completely removed, and the healing it does was reduced from 50 to 40. However, it does heal for an additional 30 health when you're cleansing a negative effect, such as Ash Dynamite or Anti-Nade. Also, her kunai damage was increased from 40 to 45. Her recovery time was reduced from 0.55 to 0.5, so you can shoot a little bit faster. And the critical damage multiplier was reduced from 3 to 2.5 times the damage. So you're doing a little bit less headshot damage, but a little bit more body damage. Now for Lifeweaver, his base health was reduced from 200 to 175, but his base shield increased from 0 to 50. So you're actually getting a little bit more health now. The primary fire had reduced spread for one of the 2 thorn volley projectiles fired per shot by 25%. So right now the spread is really tight, so it's really easy to hit those shots. Also, the rejuvenating dash, the healing was increased from 25 to 50. And then for life grip, the lockout duration was increased from 0.5 to 0.75 seconds. And then finally, 50% of the Tree of Life's overhealing is now converted to overhealth, which goes up to 100 maximum overhealth. Now for Lucio, the self-healing, there was a penalty that was at 60%, but now it's at 0%. So all of your healing is going to go straight to you. There's no longer a penalty for healing yourself. And then finally for Mercy, the secondary fire damage boost was reduced from 30 to 25%. So your damage boost isn't going to do as much damage. Most of these patch notes are fine. Some of them kind of seem unnecessary, kind of like the Diva patch. I really don't think Diva needed a buff because she was already pretty strong. However, there are a few patch notes that really stuck out to me. First was Orisa is way overtuned. She is absolutely running rampant in my competitive games, basically every single game I play. And second, I think Bastion is also way overtuned. I never really felt that Bastion needed to be a meta pick. Bastion always felt like a cheese pick to me, so I was fine with the state that he was in. But on the other hand, having more viability on Bastion is nice for those that actually want to play him. However, I do think that he is way too strong right now. He got more survivability with the changes to his assault form, and the extra damage could make him feel extremely oppressive. But other than those two things, most of the patch notes seem alright. I'd give this about a 7 out of 10. So was Season 6 a great success, or was it just an absolute flop? Well, for many people, this was the season to actually make or break for the game. Personally, I felt like the season was fairly good. The game seems mostly balanced, except for a few things here and there. The PvE was good enough for me to enjoy. Nothing spectacular, but still decently enjoyable. The new game mode is very fun. The new hero was also fairly balanced, and the progression system feels amazing. Overall, I'd give this season an 8 out of 10. But what do you think about Season 6? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, I offer coaching for only $10. So if you want to get one-on-one coaching, hit that link in the description. Also, while you're down there, join my Discord community. You're seriously missing out if you aren't a part of that community. So have a wonderful day. Coach Carson out.